All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the group's first ever live image reviews. And we got Esteban Gil with us this afternoon/evening. And Liam Neeson, my dog, is also barking, saying hi. How are you doing, Esteban?
Hey man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm super honored that I'm the first person to be put to this test, so I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It is such a pleasure to have you aboard. You've been not only an inspiration to me, but an inspiration to dozens. I wouldn't even say dozens. I'd say hundreds, thousands of photographers in the industry. So you were
Thank
obviously
you.
the natural choice to be the first one. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So for those of you who do not know Esteban, he is a educator within the industry, a fellow MagMod ambassador. But why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you for those who may not know Esteban? Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a wedding photographer. I'm based in Guilford, Connecticut, up in the boring northeast of the United States. I shoot all around the country. I've been doing this for about 10 years. And I am an educator. At least I like to call myself that most of the time. I do teach workshops. I just recently this year doing a lot of public speaking, and I'm just excited to be here. I have a photography community also. It's called Steel Influence Society, and we have a pretty good Facebook group that's constantly going and mostly based towards wedding photographers. But yeah, I'm just excited to be here and to be part of this, and I'm happy to help out whenever you need. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I absolutely appreciate it, man. Like I said, you're a huge inspiration to myself and to a lot of photographers in the community. So again, thank you. And if you guys missed that, his Facebook group is called Steel and Flint Society. If you're not a member of that, please join that as well. A lot of really good educational opportunities there. So we won't waste too much time. Tonight for the next, hour and a half, 2 hours or so, we're going to be talking about hair care treatments and fancy watches.
I knew that was coming.
So hope you
What
guys
are
are
you wearing
ready.
right now? Are you wearing a watch right now?
I am. I'm wearing
What are
my
you wearing?
Hamilton Intramatic.
I'm rocking the tag, the Formula One caliber 16. Not that anybody in here cares probably, but eh,
It's a
it's
very
fine.
nice watch. Very nice watch. We're both wearing automatics, so
Yep.
well, awesome. So basically, the way this is going to work, everyone, is we have about 30 or so images to get through. If you guys submitted, thank you so much. I did have to trim the fat a little bit just for time's sake. So I know a couple of you submitted more than one. If we only are able to get to one of your images, I do apologize, but we did have quite a few submissions, and I did actually have to shut the submission process down. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. But before we do, at the end of this video, if you guys stick around, we're going to announce the three winners who won the CG, or excuse me, the Pro Prints big canvas print. We have three winners tonight that I have randomly selected. And Esteban and I have a really big announcement to make as well. So I'm going to let you guess what you think that might be. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and switch our monitor here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. If you guys cannot see this image, please let me know. But this first image is from photographer Gretchen Troop. What do you think about this one, Esteban?
So I love this photo. I think one of the things that I look at first is usually the emotion in the image, the lighting, which is important to obviously both of us, and I think the image here is really nice. The colors are beautiful. It's a nice clean edit, which I always appreciate as somebody that tends to lean away from those nice clean edits. But it's great. I really like the lighting. I like the composition. One thing that I would probably change is probably his hand. I mean, it kind of seems like it's doing a thing of its own, but other than that,
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's just a super happy image. So
Yeah, I would completely agree. I'm going to be a little hard on Gretchen here because I do know her and I know she is eager to learn and improve. The only thing I would say besides the pose, which is a little awkward, is the highlights in the sky are a little blown out. They're a little distracting. If this were to be entered in a WPPI competition, for example, judges would automatically knock you down for that. So just something to keep in mind. Sometimes those highlights are very tricky, but Overall, I absolutely love this image. I think it's super colorful. I love what they're wearing. Uh, great shot. All right, let's go ahead and go on
Yeah.
the next one. So this next image comes from Andrea de Anda, and yeah, I think the resolution's a little low on this, but you guys pretty much get the idea. Uh, what are you thinking? What are your first thoughts?
First thoughts are it's a beautiful image. I think there's some very intentional posing, which actually works really well, especially it's not just, it doesn't look like the posing, which is kind of thrown together, which is always nice. I always appreciate that. I like that there's some emphasis on the dress. You always love that. I think if I were to do one thing differently, it would probably be I'm more of a perspective kind of guy. So I like to take advantage of something like the leading lines that are down there by the pews. So maybe gotten a little bit lower and getting more of a grand aspect of the church would have been nice. I think so. It's obviously a great shot. And then the other thing would be in the color, where I think there's a little bit of a offset in the ambient color and the white balance, and then the actual light that's falling onto the subject, which I'm sure that's probably something that you're also going to say because you're a gel user.
Actually, that doesn't that personally doesn't really bother me that much. I actually like the kind of the difference in color temperature because
Mm.
it provides a little bit of separation between them and the rest of the lighting in the church. So that doesn't necessarily bother me so much. What would bother me if this was being entered in a competition. I only say this again because I know Andrea specifically does enter in competitions. Are the highlights on the pews on the right side of the frame don't match
Mm.
the ones on the left. There are no highlights on the left side of the frame, so I feel like that would be something just to keep in mind when if you do decide to make an edit on this for competition. But
Yeah,
everything's
yeah, I agree.
subjective. So very cool. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next image here. All right, so this next image comes from photographer John Hawking. So initially, what I really like about this is I do like the lighting. I find the catch lights just slightly distracting. They're kind of a little closer to the pupil than I would personally like. But I do like the kind of the 3D effect of the lighting here. I think one thing I'm noticing a little bit is her hair. It seems to get a little muddled against the black background. I think it really would have benefited from using a hair light here. What do you think, Esteban?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not a maternity photographer by any means. I actually just did a maternity shoot last week, um, and I just remember thinking the entire time that I am not a maternity photographer. So as far as lighting goes, as far as competition or composition goes, I think there's a lot of potential here. So obviously she's very beautiful. She's got a nice smile on her face. Um, I do feel like maybe I would have had her standing up, just to accentuate more of her
Mm.
her body and the pregnancy. Um, but yeah, I do agree that there probably could have been another light in the back to kind of make it pop a little bit more if you want more of a three-dimensional look. It does seem a little bit flat, especially with the black background. Um, but overall, I think it's a well lit shot. I don't think it's bad at all as far as the lighting. I just think if you were going for a different look, then you probably could have used an additional light where it just kind of make it pop a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other final thing I want to note, just little tiny details that are really important, and these just come with experience. The little clasp on her necklace is brought down closer than it should be. It probably should be around behind her neck, so we don't see that. So just little tiny details that make all the difference.
Definitely.
Okay, so next image. This image is from Colby Walker. What do you think about this, Esteban?
Um, I like I like the posing. The posing is definitely nice. I think I always have a bit of an issue when there's a lot of tension on where the subject is looking. So if they're looking to the left of the image, I feel like there should probably be a little bit more space in front of them. I think the framing is definitely a good idea. I think this is probably when you're going to frame something like this, you're probably better off. Um, I mean, doing something with off-camera flash where it's going to make the shape look something other than just the fence or whatever Colby was walking or shooting through. But I think it has a lot of potential. I think it's just a little bit of adjustments as far as lighting and posing that would make the image stand out much more.
Yeah, I actually I do like the pose a lot. I'm not huge on their expressions. I think she. And no offense to the photographer or to the subjects, I think she just her expression looks like she's a little bored, a little unenthusiastic. Um, this pose would be a perfect opportunity for the photographer to maybe give the groom, I'm assuming the groom, a prompt to say, hey, like tell her a sexy secret, or excuse me, or tell her something, something funny, make her laugh, because I think this pose would lend itself very well to a better expression. um, Other than that, I agree with you. I like the framing, I like the composition. I think the highlights on the top of their heads are a little blown out, a little distracting. This image would have benefited really well from using some off-camera flash, just to kind of bring down
Mhm.
all those distracting highlights in the scene. But other than that, well done.
Yeah, even like you doing a quick like kiss her on the shoulder and then having her like
Yep.
cuddle back towards him. I think that usually makes a huge difference. Little things like that, like you said.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very cool. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So this next image is from photographer John Ryan. Looks like he's giving us a little bit of a flex here, with his award on the top right. And he's not watching live because he's in St. Thomas right now. But uh, what do you think, Esteban?
I like the shot. I definitely am a fan of silhouettes. I'm a big fan of silhouettes that tend to lead more towards telling a story to motion through motion as opposed to just having them stand and still in the middle of the image and just doing
Right.
nothing. So this is great. I really like this. I mean, I guess if I were to do something differently, I would have probably got a little bit lower to get more of their bodies into it. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, the editing, the motion, everything. And again, it goes back to that thing that I don't know. I think if it's just me, where I just prefer to have more in front of them. If they're towards the left of the image, I just feel like there's a lot of tension on the left. But overall, it's a really well composed image and really beautiful.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I absolutely love this image. I love the different tones. I love the blues and the oranges. How how those two colors meet. Really, the only thing there's only two maybe very small issues I have with this, that I would nitpick. And that's one, his right arm. It looks like it's non-existent, and if he doesn't
Yeah,
have a right arm, then I apologize. I mean, I don't want to assume,
that's
but
a,
if he,
that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that.
yeah, I don't want to assume, but his right arm, if he does have one, it looks like it's missing. And then the other very small thing is this one little, I don't know if you can see it, to kind of on the left side of the frame, to the left of the guy. You have this kind of piece of hay sticking out, which easily edited out, but that's just a little distracting to me.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at it now, and it almost looks like his right hand is holding her right hand. So usually when I do these types of
Oh,
shots, I
yep.
ask whoever's in front to take his left hand and hold her right hand, so that
Right.
there is that more. Uh, it looks more like he's leading her. So it looks like the hand choice was probably the wrong one in this instance.
Exactly. It would have been much stronger if if you're right, if they switched hands. So cool. All right. Moving on. So this next image is from an anonymous photographer. Uh, Initially, I really like the bokeh. I love the shallow depth of field. I think this photographer did a very good job, kind of cutting out the background clutter. Um, the light's soft. You have a little bit of that Rembrandt lighting, that shadow kind of on the left side of his face from his nose. Um, but I like the tones. Actually, there's a lot to like about this image, and there's really not much, not really many bad things I could say about it. How do you feel? Any way you feel like this could improve?
No, I actually really like this. It's me as far as just a standard portrait of a subject. It looks great. I think the composition is great. I think the posing is great. His facial expression is great. Um, Super jealous of his hair. But
Yeah,
yeah, no,
you and me both.
I think it's a great shot. Yeah, I think it's a
Yeah,
great shot. I personally wouldn't really do much to it.
yeah, exactly. It's this is what a perfectly sellable image. It's something that the client's absolutely gonna love. It's nothing super creative. It's nothing super technical, but the client is absolutely gonna love it. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. So
Right.
cool. Next photo. This next photo is also from an anonymous photographer. I like the shoes. I like this fuzzy
Yeah,
shoes.
that's those are some nice shoes. They're both wearing nice shoes. I'd wear
Yeah,
both of them.
I would too. I'd actually, I would wear the black ones on my left foot and then the pink ones on my right at the same
There you
time.
go. Now you're getting creative. I like it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, nice bokeh, nice color tones. I like the processing. She looks very happy. Which I would assume, maybe they're an engaged couple, so they probably should be happy. Um, I like the posing too. I like how his knee is slightly bent. I like how her knee is pointing towards his. One thing that I learned from watching some of Jerry Gionis's videos is he always tells photographers to have the couple almost like hug with their knees, and that's exactly what they're doing here. And I think it's a really strong image.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. Again, it goes back to that whole just it's just a very good portrait of the couple looking into the camera, which is again, sometimes we get so focused on being overly creative and doing these amazing shots when in reality, a lot of the time just the two of them looking at the camera with a cute pose, smiling. I mean, they're obviously very photogenic.
Right.
This is something that their parents or themselves would probably print out and put it on a wall somewhere. So.
Yeah.
And yes, I
Absolutely.
actually do have that somebody brings up a good point, which I was going to mention too, is the shoe is just like slightly
Yeah.
cut off, which again, it's minor, but it's little things when you get into like the whole technical aspect of things where you are maybe being judged by a competition. Those are things that are technical things that will probably be brought up. So, but overall, as an image, it's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Great shot. Nice and simple. It works.
Yeah.
Okay, next photo. This comes from Radon Burton. Now, I actually I know exactly where this photo was taken. I've done a couple photo shoots here myself, and this is, in my opinion, the most beautiful mountain range in the continental United States. But since I know exactly where this is and everything, I'm gonna let you go ahead and comment on it first.
Um, I mean, the image is beautiful, beautiful model, great lighting. The I mean, some down to the styling of the model, it looks great. Um, I do, I don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with landscape images like these that are shot wide open or close to wide open. I almost want to see more of the background too, and then maybe put more light on her if it was lit by, or maybe it wasn't, if it was lit by off-camera flash. Um, so yeah, I would say it's absolutely beautiful. If I were to shoot it, I would probably shoot it more at a narrow aperture where I'd be able to see more of the image.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. In fact, I've had multiple clients of mine that have personally told me, one of the reasons we love your style is because, you know, the mountains are in focus. But it's subjective,
Right,
Um,
right.
honestly, though, it doesn't really bother me so much. The one thing that does bother me about this image, and none of you have probably noticing it until I'm about to say it, but it is slightly off balance. So the horizon, if you look at the river, it's tilting to the right a little bit. So the image needs to
Yeah,
be brought back level. Um, so if that happened, I feel like it'd be a lot better. But honestly, I love the light. I love the composition. I love the pose. I love pretty much everything about this image except just to level that horizon a little bit more.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So anyway, next image. Thank you so much, Rodon, for submitting this. Okay, this next image is by a photographer named Cho Chi.
I love this.
Yeah, this is
There's so much going on. I could look at this image for a long time.
So right off the bat, Chochi, if you decide to enter this in any competitions, turn this to black and white for sure.
Yeah.
That would be my first suggestion. But the light's really good. The expression's really good. Everyone seems to be very engaged. Even the people in the background, like if they're not actually physically holding the chairs, they're clapping, they're enjoying themselves. I have really no negative things to say about this. Like if I had to nitpick, I'd probably say maybe take down the highlight on the groom's right cheek a little bit. Um, but like I'm literally just picking at straws here.
Yeah, I think if you're going to turn this into a black and white, you're right. You would have a much stronger image just because everything that matters in this image is properly lit, and then anything else
Agreed.
that would go away with a black and white, like the background, the twinkle lights will look much better in black and white. So anything else like on the right side of the image, where like the garage or whatever that is, that whatever this pole is at the right, that stuff would go away in black and white. And then since they're a little bit overexposed, I think it would work well with a black and white edit that has a little bit more contrast in it.
Agreed.
So it would make everything much more prominent in the image, or at least the two of them and the people underneath them.
Yeah. Yeah, great photo. This is one I would personally, if I took this, would put it near the top of my portfolio. It's that good of an image. So good job. All right, next photo. This image comes from photographer Kelsey Orcutt.
I love these. I love these
Yeah,
shots. Very clean.
it's super clean. I love the backdrop. I love the. I personally wouldn't think to use this like this nude colored backdrop. Um,
Mhm.
but I against like her particular skin tone, but it works super well. It's
Yeah.
beautiful and it plays off the color in the cheetah print as well. So I don't know if that was intentional or if it was a happy mistake, but yeah, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't do much of this. I think this is a great shot. It's very well lit. Pose is great. Great
Yeah.
model. And the background choice was awesome. It just gives to that little bit of like that pastel look, which is
hmm
really cool.
Yeah. The only thing I would probably do is maybe a little bit different is because the photographer has chose to broad light her, so light her on the biggest part of her face. I would probably have her just turn her chin a little bit closer to the camera, uh,
Yeah.
just a hair. That's gonna make her face look just a little bit thinner. Not that she needs it because she's gorgeous, she's fit, um, but just very small little thing that maybe I would do a little different. So, but I'm sure the photographer got plenty of different angles and shots and experimented with this. So,
Yeah. Someone saying her thumb being cut off is killing me. I actually didn't really notice that. I guess it would be nice to have the entire hand
yeah,
finish off, but it doesn't bother me too much.
yeah, I would agree. It doesn't bother me too much either, but maybe a little bit of adjustment on her right fingers. But
Yep.
yeah, looks good. All right.
Very nice.
Next image. This comes from a photographer by the name of Gary Pope. So, do you think this is straight off the camera?
Yes. I actually know Gary. I've met him twice. I just saw him about a week ago at the after shoot meetup. And he specifically said that he specializes in a lot of, I think his exact wording was geek weddings. So a lot of like Harry Potter,
Okay,
Star Wars, and all
it's
this
a
stuff.
great
So
niche.
this is kind of his thing right here. So I'm sure he has some
Okay.
sort of secret camera that does that does this effect in camera.
Right, of course. No, and all honesty, that's a freaking amazing niche to be in. Like if you can like dominate like a specific niche like that, people are gonna pay top dollar for your work because you're gonna be known as the
Yeah,
best of the best within that industry, that segment.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, lighting's great. Obviously a little bit of post production work here. I think the location's interesting as well. I don't know if this is a wedding or if this is like what this is. But either way, I think it's. I have nothing really negative to say about it. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think I think you could also probably have put her in a way that it would have worked better with the background and the actual room that they're in right now. So I see a little bit of a spot there, like in right behind her, where you could have probably framed her within that little square there, and
Right.
then maybe moved over to the right, maybe gotten a little bit lower. It seems like he's probably taller than her, and it almost looks like he's shooting down at her, which I generally try to stay away from. I'm either at level, or if it's very intentional, I'll be above the subject. But I think a little bit of composition work would make the shot a lot stronger. But overall, I'm sure I mean, this is something, especially if this is a bride that specifically hired him for this thing that he
Right.
specializes in, then I think this is great. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cool deal. All right, well, go ahead and move on to the next image. This one comes from a photographer named Brian Green. So I'm gonna kind of jump in real quick because I started my career shooting weddings in Southern California, so I did a ton of beach engagements and weddings. Um, One thing to keep in mind is when you're trying to do silhouettes, or you have a subject, some sort of subject matter against a bright highlight like a sunset. It's very easy for your subject to get lost behind a dark background, such as this situation. So the subject gets a little bit lost here in the waves, and then you also kind of have a wave cutting their head off a little bit. So
right,
one recommendation I would or I would recommend to make the subject stand out a little bit more is to lower the angle of your camera. Maybe place them against that bright highlight so they're a little bit more pronounced. Another option, or another thing I'm noticing here as well, compositionally wise, lacking a little bit. I don't like that the horizon's right in the middle of the frame. I think it would have been a little stronger if maybe it was a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But overall, I really like the colors in this image. I think they're fantastic. I think it's a great moment that the photographer was there for. Do you have anything to add to that, Esteban?
no, I think you're absolutely right. I think when it comes to the composition, and then when you choose how much to have in an image, I think for especially this image, the bottom portion of the image is sort of not that interesting, or at least not as interesting as the sky. So I would have had more of the sky in the image, which again, going back to what you said, you could get a little bit lower. You could probably get more of a silhouette of the subject, and then you could have a much more interesting top of the image as opposed to just kind of having that dead space at the bottom. Because if it was a really high reflection where you could see a lot at the bottom, then yeah, that would make sense. But in this case, it doesn't really come out as much, so I would have gotten a little bit lower.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, it looks like we have quite a few people tuning in live. If you're watching and you haven't said hi yet, say something in the comments just so I can see who is tuned in, because I can't actually see who's tuned in unless you make a comment. So go ahead and say hi to us. Go ahead and comment how beautiful Esteban's hair looks. Whatever you want to say. Feel free to just drop a quick little note. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next image. This one comes from a photographer by the name of Bishal Sigdel.
Just read Drew's comment.
Yes, I did. I did.
Oh God, when you posted that in my
Uh,
group, I was like, oh Sean.
yeah, I knew you wouldn't like that.
Oh, it's fine. I watched them. It's like it just brings me back to very interesting week in Vegas.
Did your butt cheeks get a little sore after watching that, just from the PTSD?
Yeah, I clenched a little bit. Yeah,
Don't worry, I've been there too, buddy. I've been there too.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, thank you, Shinley. My hair does look amazing today. Real quickly, actually, I don't know if you picked up on this, but there's a very specific reason I wore this shirt today, Esteban. And the reason why is the first time I ever met you, I was wearing this shirt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I didn't even realize it until recently. I saw a photo from that Magma dinner we were at, and
Oh,
I was,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So,
Was that
anyway,
2020, right?
yep. Pre COVID, pre the world ending.
Yeah, I think that's when it started to end.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and you're absolutely correct. Hiram, he absolutely loved it, and he was telling me before you hopped on that he actually wants to do it again as soon as possible. So we'll make that happen. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen, but you can
Yeah.
try.
Real quick,
Maybe
Mario's
Mandy will.
asking. Yeah, there you go. Mandy would love it too. Mario's asking if you use your Leica for wedding shoots.
I do. So my main system is the Canon R5. I'll do R6 for dancing. But when I want to be a little more inconspicuous, especially during cocktail hour coverage or a lot of the getting ready coverage, I'll either throw on the like a M10R with a 50 Summilux, or I will for cocktail hour I'll generally just walk around with like a Q. So that's a 28 millimeter 1.7, just a tiny camera, so you can just kind of hide away and get a lot of candid sound. So yes, I do pretty much every wedding.
That's awesome. I actually didn't know that either. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, anyway, going back to what we're here for, let's talk about this image. So right off the bat, I think it's very obvious that the contrast in color is what really makes this photo. Uh, would you agree?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is awesome. I love seeing this type of intentional, or at least I like to think it's intentional as far as contrast goes. When you're trying to create contrast from colors and from things that are kind of out of your control. So maybe he stood here for 10 minutes and waited for the right person to walk by. So this is awesome. I love this.
I would go as far as saying that this is not posed in any way. This looks
Yeah.
100% candid, journalistic. And one other thing I really love about it, honestly, probably my favorite part of the image is the fact that she is sharp, and the biker is a little blurry, motion blur,
Yeah.
and that's just fantastic. I freaking love that. The only thing I would change about this image is top middle left of the image. There's like a white line of some sort. I don't know what that is. I would just Photoshop that out real quick.
Yeah, so one of the
Um,
things, as someone that is an enthusiast of wedding or not wedding of street photography. I think this is a street shot because he's told me that he does a lot of street photography in
yeah.
Nepal, I think. Um, I don't I think it goes against the street photography code where like you're photoshopping things. So if I was doing it from a street photographer perspective, I would probably just leave everything as it is. If I were to change anything, I would have probably done it with a wider focal length where like the shapes behind her finished, instead of cutting
Okay.
them off
Yep.
up top. And then I would have loved to see the guy in the bike, um, to see more of him. So I would have probably shot it with a wider focal length. So
Awesome. Awesome. Yep. Totally agree. Fantastic image. Uh, yeah. Absolutely. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next image. So this next photo comes from Jordan Fletcher. Um, so couple. I have a couple things to note about this. So let me talk about the positives. Let me tell you what I like about it. I love the pose. They look wrapped up, which is very romantic. The lighting is fantastic. Um, and I think the composition works pretty well. A couple things I would have liked to see done a little bit differently. The exposure is a little too long, and you can tell because you can see a little bit of streaking in the stars. And that generally happens when you're either A, using too narrow of a focal length, or B, you have the shutter open too long. So that's something I would probably change. Maybe shoot this a little bit wider of an angle. The other thing, a couple other small technical things. The left side of the frame, by the tail light, that is illuminated, whereas the right one's not, and that's very distracting to me. There's a little bit of a highlight on the rear window, and then there's some spill on the ground. And then other than just a little bit of high ISO grain, those are really just the main issues I have with the image. But overall, I think any client that received this would absolutely love it. Would you
I
agree?
agree. Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's a beautiful image. I think going back to, especially when you do a lot of these long exposures, you could benefit from, and there's a reason why a lot of astrophotographers use an ultra wide angle lens. Generally speaking, when you're using an ultra wide angle lens, it's a lot easier to get a sharper image.
Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so if this was shot with like a 35 or 50, it would have been a lot harder. And that's
Right.
probably why you have that effect on their faces and stuff. So if you're a little bit wider, then it would have been good. But yeah, no, it looks. I think it's a great image. I think they'll love it. Again, nitpicking, you probably like their feet are also cut off. So when you just that little bit of being more aware of
Yep.
what is in your frame, just stepping back a couple of centimeters, or even just tilting your camera down a little bit would have made a huge difference. I'm just always it always I always my eye always goes back to where the image is cut off. So
Yeah, if I had to guess, I'd be willing to bet, and Jordan, if you're watching, let me know. I'd be willing to bet that this was shot with a 35.
yeah, yeah, it
Looks
looks
like
like it.
looks like it was shot with 35. So anyway, great image. I'm sure the clients were absolutely stoked on it. So good job. Okay, next photo. This one comes from another star photo. This one comes from photographer Naomi O'Hara.
This is great. I
Yeah,
love this.
I love the choice. I love the fact that they chose blue lights to kind of complement the blue sky.
Yeah, I think it works great with the blue lights, and then the light on them is it's they really pop against the blue light. Um, I think the only thing that I would probably, I mean, I think the horizon's also a tiny bit off, but that's just nitpicking. You could probably fix that very quickly. I'm not sure what's going on with her legs.
Yeah, I was
I
trying
would
to
have
figure it
probably
out.
just had her just standing up normally, and it would have been a little bit uh,
Right,
more
right.
to my liking in the way that I like to pose my couple. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I one thing I really like about this image, that's very hard to achieve in shots like this is how sharp they are, how clear they are. That's
yeah,
really hard to do with photos like this. It makes me wonder actually if this is a composite or a single exposure. Um, and I actually would be very interesting in I'd be very interested to see what she did, and I'd like to talk to her because it is very interesting. So yeah, really, really strong image. The only thing I'd have to say negative about it is the pose is a little weird with the knee, and then the flashes. You know, you can kind of see the square like flash head, which is a little distracting. I think it would have been a little bit stronger if like you shot this at f10 for example, and you got like the starburst effect, but then you don't pick up the
right.
detail in the sky. So it's kind of a catch 22. Definitely positives and negatives for sure, but overall super awesome image. I'm absolutely in love with it. So
Agreed.
yeah, very cool. All right. Next image. This photo comes from a photographer named Kelly Buchanan. What do you think about this, Esteban? Esteban.
I like this. Again, I'm not a maternity photographer, so I can't really speak too much on the actual maternity part of it. This pose is literally what I did throughout the entire maternity shoot that I had last Saturday. So that's the extent of
Yeah,
my knowledge when it comes to posing for
I, I,
maternity.
I would agree.
Um, but as far as the actual image, I think it's beautiful. I think it was shot
Yeah.
with a really good focal length. It really makes her pop when you're. I'm assuming this is probably like a 200 millimeter at f2.8 or something like that. It just has that like really nice look, especially with the distance between the subject and the background. It just really makes her pop a lot. I think the bottom is a little bit distracting, so I would have probably
Hmm.
composed a little bit differently where those pipes aren't really in the image, or maybe use them to our advantage where the pipes can lead to her. But then again, I don't know what the actual place looks like, or it might have been harder to do. But I would have probably got a tiny bit closer and maybe got rid of a lot of the bottom, because again, we're going back to this whole everything in the image should be sort of intentional. So the bottom portion of the image to me kind of doesn't belong there. So you could have probably moved a little bit and made her stand out more. Maybe moved over to the right a little bit, and then centered her up if you wanted that center composition, or took the pipes and use them to your advantage by composing them and maybe using the leading lines to go into the subject. But
Yeah, no,
that's what I got.
agreed. I absolutely agree. I like the processing. I like the location. I like the choice in focal length. This is very Very similar to what I would do personally with my style, is I love that compression. The biggest issue I have with the image is the composition, like you. She's right in the middle of the frame, and as a result, your eye tends to wander a little bit, and I think that's what's hurting this image. But overall, it's great. I love the tones. It's not my style personally. I generally like more kind of bold and vibrant colors. This is more muted, a little bit more kind of more like a dark and moody style. But
Right.
the pose is fantastic. The location's great. I think just a couple small tweaks, and this would be an absolutely phenomenal image. So
Totally agree.
very cool. All right, go ahead and moving on. This comes from, oh, okay, I can't wait to tear this one apart. This next photo comes from a photographer named Angela Nelson, aka Angie Nelson.
Never heard of her.
Never heard of her. Nope, no one knows
Yeah,
who she
who is
is.
this?
She's just some Craigslist photographer, I think. Just kidding.
Hey,
We
I
love
was a
you,
Craigslist
Angie.
photographer once.
Hey, we all were. We all were.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, Angie, we're just kidding. We love you. I'm gonna start with the obvious, which is the processing. Extremely contrasty. I think the best part about this image is just their expressions. I mean, look at everyone interacting with I'm assuming maybe the groom. It's awesome. Everyone's having a really good time. I think from an emotional impact perspective, it's a winner. What do you think?
I agree. This has great lighting. I think the composition is great. I think the processing is great. It's very much to what I think of when I think of her style. And then again, it's just one of those things that you can't really. It's either luck or just doing it so much that you just get used to really kind of getting that decisive moment. And I feel like she's very good at this, where it's like I'm just gonna get that snapshot of the absolute right moment. I think this is it, especially with the people towards his right and the left of the image. It's a great shot. I love how the shoe leads to his face. It's just there's a lot going on, which I'm always a fan of.
Right.
So
Yeah. My only, I guess, kind of constructive criticism here, I would like to see a little more detail in the blacks. I personally love kind of this contrasty style, but I do think a little more detail would go a long way for sure.
yeah,
So anyway, great. Thank you for submitting, Angie. Angie's actually one of my personal favorite photographers. Thank you for submitting. I appreciate it. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next image. This comes from a photographer named James LaSalle. I said your last name right, James? Did I say it correctly? I hope so. Anyway, I'm going to start off with a little personal note here. This is a second generation NSX. My dream car is the first generation NSX. So I don't think I can critique this photo objectively because I have a love for NSXs. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and weigh in a little bit on this.
I mean, I think it's a great image. I think I personally wouldn't. I mean, I'm not a car photographer or a photographer that does a lot of these like model shoots. I think it's great. I think the posing is great. She obviously knows how to work the camera. The lighting is awesome because has that like very contrasty, like grungy feel,
Glamour
which kind of
look,
plays
almost,
itself to that like the car. I would have liked to see more of the vehicle. I feel like there's two subjects here. I feel like there's a couple of different audiences that might like this image, and one of them being car enthusiasts, and then more like portrait enthusiasts. So maybe stepping back a little bit and getting more of the vehicle would have been nice. I think if you're nitpicking, you could probably clean up the tire a little bit, like the tire wall, and then the cone. I mean, I just think it kind of.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it belongs there. So that's the one thing that I would probably either Photoshop out, or maybe I would have shot it a little bit different where you didn't really need that space on the left. So, because I
Yeah.
would much rather get that space on the left out and then get more of the vehicle in the image.
Yeah, if I were to shoot this, I would pan the camera to the right a little bit, so you get a little bit more of the back of the car. almost position
Right.
the model on the left of the frame, right? So you kind of have the model on the left, and then you have you have the right of or the on the right side of the frame you have the back of the car. Uh, and then also there's just
Yep.
on the quarter panel, or right where the quarter panel meets the bumper by the tail light, you have a little bit of a highlight, a little hot spot right there. Something that's easily fixable, but something that to me is a little distracting. Some people might not care, but overall, yeah, really great image. I'm digging it. So thank you so much for submitting, James. This next image comes from a photographer that goes by Scott Tibbles. Um, so I'm gonna start off with some positives, and I'm just gonna say right off the bat, the impact here is very strong. Super awesome photo. Like it's so hard, and I speak from experience. It's so hard to get six or five groomsmen who are probably drunk together for a photo like this, and not only together for a photo but also blowing out a pretty decent amount of smoke that actually shows up well in photos. It's lit very well, and all their expressions for the most part are pretty good. So I think it's a very well done photo. I would just Photoshop those plastic lawn chairs out in the background.
Yeah, I even just crop the image in if you don't feel like photoshopping things. I feel like it probably could be cropped in a tiny bit and still get rid of those chairs. But I would agree. I think this is a very well lit image. I think the black and white plays very well. So yeah, no, that's it's a great image.
Yeah, super solid. I'd be curious to see what the color version of this looks like as well. I'd be curious to see if he, used like a gel or anything on this, and then just decided, you know what, I think it looks better in black and white. But overall, this is one of those photos that makes the groom and the groomsmen look like rock stars on the night of a wedding. And this is a photo that they are gonna literally cherish for the rest of their life. So, great shot. I commend the photographer. Really solid image. So
Definitely.
okay, here we go. So this next photo comes from Sandra Miltenberg.
You want me to go or you want to go?
Uh, why don't we both go at the same time? We talk over each other so no one can understand us. Just kidding. Why don't you go?
All right, so I love shots like these. I love the lighting in this image. I love the editing in the image. I always have something that I feel a lot of people tend to overlook when it comes to a lot of these architectural images, where you have your couple, and then you have a church in the background, you have any sort of building in the background that kind of plays toward the the story of the image or whatever you're trying to portray in the image, and a lot. And I always mention it, especially when I'm doing any like one-on-one stuff. I, you have to make sure that the image is somehow finishes. So, for example, if you're looking at a church and you want it to be a major part of your image, you want to make sure that the entire church is in it, especially if you have this type of shot. This is a really grand wide angle shot, where if you see the top of the church, it just, it's one of those things where when you look at such a beautiful shot and you go, oh, if you just again at the bottom, there's a lot of dead space at the bottom, but if you just step
Yep.
back a little bit and tilted your camera up and you actually got the entire church, it would be a significantly stronger image. And I think that's just over time where you just kind of make yourself aware as you put your eye up to the viewfinder, making yourself aware of what's in the background as opposed to just kind of pinpointing at the subject. And then later on realizing that, because we've all done this before, going in and importing and going, oh, dang it, like I didn't get the entire church in the image. So that's my biggest uh, takeaway from a shot like this. But other than that, it's very well done.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because that's the first thing I noticed too, is the top of the church being cut off, which it seems like such a small insignificant detail, but the fact that we both noticed it definitely says something. The other thing
Right.
as well is the horizon. Again, I'm picking on you guys for the horizons. The horizon's a little bit off balance. So if this was just kind of rotated a little bit, even maybe like 5 or 10 degrees to the right, it would frame itself a little bit better. Other than that, lighting is absolutely fantastic. I love the lighting. I love her pose. He seems a little stiff compared to her. She seems to be working in that pose really well, super comfortably. He seems a little stiff, but overall, it's an awesome photo. So
I do want to add something else that I just noticed.
yeah,
Another thing that I see a lot when it comes to post processing, if I don't know if it might just be my screen or I mean I'm looking on a calibrated screen, but the dress looks blue. So to me, I
yeah,
would desaturate the blues a little bit and then bring that, make sure that the dress are meant, especially I'm assuming that this dress was a white dress. You want to make sure that you portray that in the images that you take. So if you just go to your HSL slider and then just go to saturation and desaturate the blues, I guarantee you that that dress will pop a little bit more and it'll get that cold look to it. And it'll be a little bit
agreed.
more leaning towards where her skin tones are, where it's nice and warm. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for submitting an image. Really appreciate it, Sandra. Next photo, and this one comes from someone who wishes to remain anonymous. Um, so right off the bat, I'll start with some of the positives. I like the pose. Seems pretty natural. He seems comfortable in front of a camera. There are a couple technical issues with this image, and I'm sure you see them as well, Esteban. So I'm gonna let you kind of weigh in on what those are.
yeah, I mean, the first thing that pops out is that his seems to be out of focus. It almost seems like the front of the jacket looks more in focus than he is. Um, you always, especially if you're doing a portrait of anybody, you want to make sure that your eyes are at least what's most in focus in the image. I think there's also some off-camera flash or at least some external light being used that was casting a shadow behind him. So I would have probably, unless that was intentional, which again, it tends to be somewhat popular right now, but I think if you're going to do that, then you want the shadows to be a little bit more prominent in the image. But to get rid of that, you could probably move him away from whatever the background is because there's not really much going on in the background anyways. But the biggest takeaway to me, it's the shadow in the background, and then he's a little bit too soft for my liking. It seems like the focus is off somewhere.
Yeah, the light is a little flat. A really good way to look at and to tell flat lighting, is one of two ways. Is one, you look at the catch lights in their eyes. So as you can see, and actually I could probably, can I zoom in? No, I can't. Never mind. Sorry, hold on. I guess I can't. But basically, if you look at the catch lights, it's very close to the pupil, and then you also look at the shadows. There virtually are none, so the image is very flat. But overall, I think for what it is, it seems like if I had to guess, it looks like it's like maybe a groom or something who's kind of like, these are some pre-wedding photos. I'm not really sure, but either way, I mean, I like the processing on it, and he looks good, so I think he'd be happy with this image. But just a couple technical things to work on, something to keep in mind for the future. So,
You
okay,
just got called thirst traps.
we got called thirst traps from
Yeah,
who?
by
Oh, from John Ryan.
John
John,
Ryan.
you missed. We critiqued the crap out of your image already, dude. You're gonna have to go back and watch it. So, uh, anyway, so moving on. This next image comes from a photographer by the name of Jeremy McCullough. So this is obviously not a portrait photo. This is a landscape image, from what it seems like. It's kind of low resolution, so I can't really tell, but it kind of looks like maybe the rock's a little out of focus or a little motion blur. But I think the composition is really interesting here. I like the low perspective, kind of just hovering right over the water. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think that if you're going to do this and you're going to make the center of the image what is essentially the subject of the image, I would have probably shot it at a narrower aperture where that's more in focus. I would rather see the center of the image be in focus and then having the surrounding be a tiny bit out of focus. And then I don't know if it looks like the horizon's a little bit off too, but
Right.
yeah, that's my biggest takeaway. I would probably say the focus should have been on the center of the image as opposed to because it makes it a little bit more interesting where it's sort of backwards. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Totally agree. All right. Next photo. This one comes from photographer Radon Burton. So, how much newborn photography do you do, Esteban?
it's about 99.99% of not my work.
So, probably about 5 years ago, I decided to give it a shot, and I quickly realized
Yeah.
I hated it. And because of that experience, I have a huge amount of respect for people who are able to not only do newborn photography, but those who are able to successfully pull it off. Um, it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
and honestly, this is probably the only image that I've seen so far that I can't think of a critique. I think it's pretty damn good the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think as far as the overall editing, the lighting, I think the technical aspect of it is really nice. I think if I were to do, and again, I'm very much about if you're going to center a subject, make sure that everything around it makes sense. The baby being the center here, I would have probably moved, and again, this is just nitpicking. I would have moved them so that the lines at the bottom um, where the floor is, they would have been more symmetrical and leaning more towards him. So maybe, or towards the baby. I don't know if it's girl or boy, but maybe gotten a little bit lower and then using the lines to center it up a little bit and having more symmetry in the image because it looks like it's leaning more towards. There's a lot of stuff on the left as opposed to the right. So I would have moved to the right a little bit and then maybe a little bit lower and then use
Right.
those lines to play with the symmetry a little bit. But overall, it's a beautiful image. So
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I like the outfit too. That outfit is super cute.
yeah,
So cool deal. We're actually getting through this pretty quick, dude. We're
I
almost
know.
almost
Yeah,
through. So
I'm shocked.
yes, yes. Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay,
Yeah.
this next photographer is called Tyler Stallings, and here is his photo. So one thing I want to point out real quick is it's very obvious they have dogs. And the reason being is you could just see a lot of dog hair on the back of his jacket.
Yeah.
I understand, Tyler. If you're watching, I understand that life. I live that life. It's just a way of life, so I get it. What do you think about this photo?
Um, this has a lot of potential. I do think that if if you were going to make her the major the major focal point of the image, I would probably get a little bit closer and
Mm-hmm.
then
Yep.
made her a little bit bigger in the image. I always go back to this like is everything in the image intentional? So the right part of the image, it just seems like it's a little bit darker. There's not really much going on. So I would have probably either cropped in a little bit more, gotten a little bit closer to her. I mean, if this was a shot that I was taking, I would have probably gotten them more, both their faces in the image a little bit more. Um, and then maybe had her open her eyes and maybe looking at him instead of just going in for a mooch. So just like
Yeah.
open eyes looking at him. But it's great. If it's a ring image, then I would have got a little bit closer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential here. I just think it's maybe a matter of making the decision of like what do I want the image to show to the viewer and to me probably getting a little bit closer, maybe getting the ring and more in focus. So
Yeah, I would completely agree because at this focal length, I I want to see more of the groom, right? Like I want to
yeah,
see more of him. But I feel like if the image was cropped a little bit tighter or shot a little bit tighter and it's more focused on her, then I wouldn't it wouldn't bother me as much because it becomes very obvious at
right,
that point, oh, it's about her. It's not about him.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that's probably what I would do. Edit out those dog hairs. I'm a little. I feel like there might be a story behind this because he's wearing like a nice suit and she's wearing like a snow jacket with a veil. So I don't know if this is like on top of her wedding dress or something, but I found that a little odd, but I feel like there is a good story behind this, and it is intriguing, and it makes me want to learn more. So, okay, moving on. This next photo is by Bichel Sigdel again. Yeah, dude, this is pretty good.
Oh yeah.
Um, I like it. My yeah, this is I love the color. I love the blues. I love the reds. I love obviously what they're wearing. His head gets a little lost in the door,
Hmm.
the top of his head. As you can see, it kind of blends in. But I'm just nitpicking at that point, you know? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I love the composition. I love that again that the top is all there, which is something we talked about earlier. The sides aren't there, so I that gives me a little bit of an issue. I think that I don't know. I feel like sometimes to me less is more. I feel like I'm not a gel user. I'm not somebody that's usually
Right.
like adding a bunch of different colors to images. Um,
I'm not either.
I don't know. I feel like without the gel, could have probably made him stand out a little bit more, maybe because
Yeah.
that background is too bright now, so he's kind of blending in with it. So sometimes maybe not overdoing it when it comes to forcing the off-camera flash is something that I love to talk about. So maybe seeing how it looked without the red, because overall he does kind of blend in with a bright background. So
Yeah, and I actually kind of want to know if he used off camera flash on the subject as well, like if there's a main light hitting them, or if it's just a really bright day and the sun's just hitting them. From what I can see, it kind of looks like it's natural light, and then he
yeah,
just used the red gel as a backlight, but I'm not 100% sure. So, uh, I would like if if you do watch this video, if you're not watching it live, Bishal, I would love to get a little bit more information on how you shot this image. So, yeah, thank you very much for submitting. Next photo. This comes from a photographer you may or may not have heard of him. His name is Scott Josewhite.
never heard of him.
Yeah, never heard of him either.
Mm. Yeah, this is very
Uh,
much a Scott shot.
yeah, this is a very very Scott shot. um, yeah, this is dope. It's pretty. It's very pretty.
Yeah,
Um,
I like it. I always appreciate the extreme compositions. I think he does this very well, where the subjects are very small in the image, and you just kind of have this intentional, which is again we talked about this before, where if you have a lot of dead space in the image, you kind of want it to be intentional. So Scott is very good at doing this, where hey, if my subject is going to be in the corner of the image, I'm going to make sure that everything that's around them is intentional. And to me, he
right.
does this through whether it's lighting the foreground or whether it's playing with color or whatever's in the foreground. And I think he does a really good job at this. I mean personally, if I were to nitpick at this, I would say that I would have probably stood up a little bit more and then hidden the house in the background with some of these foreground whatever these flowers are.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a beautiful image.
Yeah, I completely agree. If and this is just my personal style. If I were to have shot this and I had a little bit of time to play with them, I mean, again, on a wedding day, you don't have that much time, but um, probably what I would have done is maybe put in a backlight, so
Yeah.
they have a little bit of that rim light to separate them from the background a little bit. So,
Oh, we're hiding the subject. People are like, "Where's the subject?"
oh crap, here. Can you guys see it now? Hold on. I just moved my screen a little bit. There we go. Yes. Okay. There we go. You guys can see it now. Uh, there it is. I just moved it. So yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. I totally didn't realize that. I was just looking at my screen. So I actually have three monitors. I have one right here, one right here, one right here. So I really have no excuse. But anyway, there's a view of what that looks like. So, really, really fantastic photo, Scott. This is, to me, this is almost, this it kind of screams. I mean, this is Scott's style for sure, but this also gives me some two-man vibes as well, which I think we all can appreciate. So, all right, moving
I've
on.
never heard of them either.
Yeah, there's some mediocre photographers. Just kidding. Not that they're watching, but this next photo comes from a photographer named Danny. All right, what are some of the things you like about this photo, Esteban?
Well, I mean, I think it's it's a good image. I think it definitely needs a lot of work when it comes to a lot of the technical aspect of the image. Um, I would say, I mean, it looks like it's shot a really high ISO, and maybe the shadows were brought up a lot. I would like to see the shadows be brought down more. You can see some banding.
Mm,
It almost starts to have that like video screenshot feel, where it just looks like it was a screenshot from a video. Um, but I would bring the shadows back down, maybe the blacks back down, and then create a little bit of contrast with the subject. But her expression is great. I like that they're looking at each other. It seems like it's a very genuine moment. But there is a lot of technical stuff that would make the image a little bit stronger, which especially in post, right? You could probably do this in post processing. So
yeah, I'll definitely echo that. A lot of technical work that needs to be done. Uh, Danny, if you are watching this, one thing I would recommend actually is this would be a very good image to convert to black and white.
yeah,
It will make the grain and the noise a little bit less apparent, which will allow you to focus more on the moment as opposed to the technical issues with the image. So, yeah, really appreciate you submitting. Thank you so much. This next photo comes from a photographer, local photographer here, actually in Fort Collins. His name is Bob Younger. So I believe this was actually shot in Vegas during WPPI week. So
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, it looks like there's some gel work going on. I think the color choices are great. The blue and the warm background looks really good. I don't know what these like red and blue little balls are around. What are these from? Are these in post
uh,
or is it just
they're
from something
more
else?
they're more than likely aliens. But
There you go. That's what I thought.
yeah, but I can't say definitively that that is in fact what they are. Oh, Bob is
Yeah, I mean,
commenting,
I
and he
think
says yes, they are aliens.
nice, awesome. That's what I thought. All right, so the aliens look great. I think it adds to again that space of the image. I think the pose is great. She's obviously very good looking. You have, um, I would say that maybe the highlights on her back a little bit too hot for me.
Agreed.
There's a lot of good tutorials when it comes to gelling that you can do. I can't remember the guy that's really good at it that has a course on it, but I'll comment in the after the live. What would it be? And then her hand looks like there's either motion
Right.
or some sort of distortion on there. I'm not really sure what that is, but it's a great
Yeah.
image.
Yeah, it's great. One other just kind of thing I'm nitpicking at is I do see a little bit of lack of detail in the darker parts of the image. So you see a lot of noise, a lot of grain in the sky, and then a little bit in the shadows, like on the railing. So that may not bug you, but from a technical perspective, it's um, a little could use some improvement. But yeah, it's a fun image. I actually would like to see, and I have seen some of Bob's other photos from this photo shoot. And I do think there were some that were really good. But for this particular photo, I think if I were just judging it based off this sole photo alone, I would like to see actually a little bit more in the frame. I think it is cropped a little tight. And this is one instance where I'd like to see a little bit more of her, a little bit more of the scenery. Uh, so that's something I would like to see. But yeah, great photo. Thank you again for sharing. All right, guys, we are almost through. We only got a few more photos left. This next photo comes from photographer Jordan Fletcher.
Uh,
Can you see it?
yes. Sorry, I
Okay.
just had to pull it up.
Yeah. So obviously bridal prep. Um, I really really like the lighting on this. I think it looks like a two light setup. You know, one light for the background and one light uh for the subject.
Yeah.
Um, that's nice. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I generally don't lean towards using off-camera flash for getting ready portion, but I definitely appreciate this, especially you have photographers like Christian Cardona that are super talented at like these very creative color balance and using gels and getting these really creative getting ready images. If I were to change anything from this image, or maybe to take a little bit of a different approach, is I mean you have a lot of clutter in the background, so maybe compose it a little bit differently, where like that cup is in the background, and then the stuff at the bottom.
Yeah,
And then she looks a little bit too cool for my taste, so maybe warm the
yep.
entire image up a little bit,
I was gonna say that as
so
well.
that she pops a little bit more. But other than that, it's a very beautiful, beautiful image.
Yeah, agreed. My only two comments would be to crop it a little bit tighter and warm up the image. It is a little cool, but yeah, it's a good photo. Her expression's a little off. She looks annoyed, but the lighting and everything else is good. So thank you so much for submitting this image. All right, this next photographer is known by the name of David Bowles.
I love this.
Yeah, I feel like this is very you. Like this speaks to your style a little bit, Esteban.
Agreed. Yeah, I this is very much a shot that I would take in the getting ready. I always kind of look for those empty spaces where you can kind of compose in a more of like a very extreme composition. I love the editing. I love the black and white. I love the minimalist feel to it.
Yep, minimalist
Um,
approach.
yeah, it's just it's beautiful. It works very well.
Yeah. John, I don't know if this is a natural light shot, but I think David's watching, so maybe he can comment on how he did this. But yeah, I agree. I love the fact that it was converted to black and white. I think this is an absolutely phenomenal image. The only thing that bothers me, and now that I'm going to say this, you're probably going to see it, is it looks like she has a piece of hair
Oh
coming out
yeah,
of her mouth.
yeah, you're right. I was gonna
Uh,
say that the light by her ear, that
oh, that I mean
contrast
that
there
as
kind
well.
of
Yeah, that as well.
yeah.
So David did say he did light it with one light in the back.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's great.
yeah, the shadow on her neck, and then the hair coming out of her mouth is a little
So,
distracting.
as somebody that does these types of shots a lot, one of the things that I like to think about when I'm doing a lot of these minimalist images, where I'm using a very empty background, is to you either so the positioning of the bride is almost in the middle. It's almost like it wants to be a centered image, or it doesn't, and it looks a little bit confused. Like it doesn't know where the bride should be. So to me, I usually go for an extreme composition. So I would put her at the very corner of the image, or I put her at the
Hmm.
very back where there's an abundance of background, and it kind of helps that composition a
Yeah,
little bit more. So either center her or put it at an extreme of the wall if the wall is big enough. So just food for thought.
yeah, absolutely. Hey, David, thank you so much for submitting this image. It's phenomenal. So really appreciate it. All right, this next photo comes from James LaSalle. Um, So I'll start with the obvious. This is super cool. The fact that you have a bride, or at least it looks like maybe a bride. I don't know. For all intents and purposes, I'm gonna call her the bride. How she's getting intimate with this horse, of course.
Is this an equestrian wedding? Because I've actually seen that a lot of people specialize in equestrian weddings.
Yeah. I think James is still watching. Maybe he can weigh in, but I have no idea. Um, so I do like that. I like the emotional connection between her and the horse. For me, and I've mentioned this a couple times tonight, lack of detail in the shadows. Her face kind of gets lost. And I would like to see a little bit more. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but the image looks a little soft. Are you seeing that too?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
John is asking
I
for
think
another May. I'll give you one in a second. Okay.
the I don't know what I'm not somebody that is very familiar with these terms, but whatever is that rope that's hanging off, it seems like it's more in focus than the eye. So this is definitely a
Right.
shot that you want to make sure that the eyes are in focus. And then to me, the obviously the hand, if the hand's in the image, then again going back to that making sure that whatever's in the image has some purpose to the image. So if you just have a thumb and like a quarter of the hand, it kind of doesn't make sense. So either take the hand off, or if you're going to add the hand, then make sure that you step back to where you can actually see the entire hand in the image.
Right. That's great. I actually didn't even notice that. So very good, very good point. Yeah. Just a couple technical things here that I think could be improved. Oh, James weighed in. It's a styled shoot. So yeah,
Gotcha.
definitely. I mean, especially on styled shoots too, dude. You have a little bit more time generally to play around. So take the extra second just to kind of pause and think. And really be aware of your technical settings and everything. Because you're not so much on a time crunch as you would be on like a wedding or something. So thank you so much for submitting that. Next image. Okay, that was for you, Johnny boy. Okay, this comes from Gretchen Decker. Uh, this is I like the environment. I like the background. I like one thing I really like actually, and I don't see this very often, is I like that he's helping her hold the bouquet. It's just somewhere else for him to place his hands.
Yeah.
So I do like that aspect of it. What do you think?
I like it. I think it's definitely something that it's certainly not going to win any awards, or there's not like anything that like really super stand outish of the image. But it's again, it's for what we do. It's something that's going to be so important for the two of them, where they just have that beautiful portrait of the two of them looking into the camera, the veils flowing in the air. Like those are things that our couples appreciate so much
Right.
more than maybe like super fancy lighting or like these crazy extravagant images with like all these gels and all this other stuff. Which again, there's a place for that stuff, but again, I just always lean towards some of these portraits that are just so much more important to what we do rather
Right.
than the other stuff. So I think it's beautiful. I think it's well done. I think it's well composed. It's shot with the right focal length. I mean, the dress is a little bit blown out. I don't know if that's just my
Yep.
screen or,
I see it as
but it's
well.
definitely
Yep.
a little bit blown out. So I would try to see if you can fix that a little bit, and then maybe try and see what if it doesn't, then maybe try and see what it would look like in black and white. But I like the green in the background, so I'd probably keep it that way.
Yeah. I think it's a great image. Good processing. Poses is nice. He's a little stiff, but I
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
like the connection between them. It's obvious that there's a very good connection, and I think at the end of the day, that is what's most important. So very nice. All right, guys, we got two images left, and then we're going to go ahead and announce the canvas print winners, and also make one more very big announcement. So here's the next image, and this comes from photographer Michael Guerrero. Another landscape image here. Um, so for me, this brings back a lot of nostalgia because this is the Owens River up in Northern California. I used to do a lot of fishing up in this area when I was growing up. So very cool shot. Obviously taken, at least I'm assuming it was taken from a drone. Um, yeah. What do you think, Esteban?
I mean, I am not a landscape photographer. I feel like if I see a shot like this, I automatically fall in love with it. So I think it's beautiful. Um, if I were to nitpick at it, I mean, I would have loved to use the whatever the stream is for a little bit of a more stronger composition, especially at the leading lines leading towards the mountains in the background. But I mean, it's beautiful. The sky, the contrast with the sky, and then the mountains, then the color of the ground, just it just works really well. I'm a little curious about what the cloud formation looked like at the right of the image. So I would have maybe tried to see what it looked like towards the right, where maybe the clouds, or sorry, the mountains wouldn't end on the left a little bit, where it can just be all mountains going across. and then maybe gotten a couple clouds to for more of an interesting composition on the sky. But I mean, overall,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful image.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I were to edit this photo, I probably would crop a little bit of the sky out, so your eye just doesn't really wander too much. But I
Yeah,
absolutely love that the river is acting as a lead line. It makes you fall. You know, your eye follows the river right into the mountains. I
right.
would love to personally see this image shot at like sunrise or sunset, where you get a little bit of the light on the mountains. I think that'd be a I think that would have been really, really awesome if you did that. But overall, this is a really solid photo. I would just crop it a little tighter, and this is a photo I would hang up as a 40 by 60 in my house. Printed by
Yeah.
ProPrints, of course. So, all right. This is our last photo, and this photo comes from photographer Gretchen Troop. What are your thoughts?
I like the colors in the background. It kind of makes them stand out a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, the gel, it looks like it's a couple different gels, I'm assuming. Um, I think it's great. I mean, if it's leaning towards that like that same style of photography that Gary has back when we talked about it, and I think it has a really
Right.
cool feel to it. Um, I think maybe compositionally, I would have probably liked to step back a tiny bit, so maybe
Yeah.
shot up at them a little bit more. But it works. I mean, I think it's a great image. I think the posing is a little confusing. I'm not really sure what's going on as far as the posing goes, but
He's trying to cup
sometimes
a
that might
feel.
be looked at as a well, that's where I was getting to.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's the what they were trying to go for, then obviously that works really well. It looks like there's some wind happening. I think it's a cool image. I think that maybe the posing needs a little bit of work, and then maybe the composition could be a little bit better as far as either using a wider focal length or stepping back a tiny bit.
Yeah, I think it's really fun. A really fun image. I love what's going on in the background. It's super interesting. I think there's two issues I have with this photo, or not really issues, but just things I think that could be improved. One, the light on them, it seems very yellow. And I don't know if it's because this was shot with natural light or if there was a gel used, but I'm not a big fan of the light, the color temperature of that. And then the second thing is nothing really the photographer could have controlled, but uh, there's two very big contrasts between what they're wearing. She's wearing a very elegant maroon dress, and he's just very casual.
Right.
So that balance is a little off putting to me. But other than that, fantastic, fantastic photo. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay. Very cool. Well,
That's
hey,
it.
guys, that was our last image. So that brings us to a couple of announcements. So, for starters, I want to thank you guys so much for entering photos into this image review. And I want to thank Esteban one more time for joining us. He is on the East Coast, so I know this is very late for him. I think it's 10:30 your time. So again, I really appreciate it. Um,
Anytime.
so first things first, this is something we're going to do every month. Each month I am going to have a new guest reviewer. I already have the guest reviewer for April picked out, which I will announce in the next few days. So please, if you did not get the opportunity to submit this time, please go ahead and do so. I will post a link to April's image submission, and I will also be releasing that in a few days. And because of how popular this was, it is first come, first served. We're only going to allow one photo per person. And as soon as we hit 30, we're going to go ahead and close it up. So I have the winners for the free canvas print from ProPrints, and it is a 30. What is it? I think it's a 24 by 36. It's big. It's really big canvas. So these are three names that I picked at random. I didn't play favorites or anything. I just picked a number, and you are the winners. So if you are one of these winners, please contact me, and I will send you your promo code. So the first winner is Jordan Fletcher. Woo! The
Yay,
second
Jordan.
winner Yeah. Second winner is James LaSalle. And the third winner is Mo Roberts. So if
Nice.
you guys are watching this and you are a winner, please send me a message and I'll go ahead and get you your promo code. All right. So last but certainly not least, we have a really big announcement to make. Are you ready, Esteban?
I think so.
Are you sure?
I don't know. I'm nervous.
All right, I am nervous too. All right, here we go, guys. Boom. Yep, it's happening. We are hosting a workshop together in November of 2022 this year, and it is going to be held on. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. I need to give you guys more details. Wow. Where'd it go? There it is. So it is going to be, let me actually make sure I get these dates right. It is going to be on November 9th and 10th, which is the week right before Veterans Day. And it's going to be happening in Las Vegas. So details are to be announced. We still have a lot of stuff to talk about and work through, but we can tell you right now it's going to be, again, on November 9th and 10th. It's going to be a 2-day event. It is going to be limited to 15 photographers only. So as soon as we fill up those 15 spots, that is it. We're really excited to do this. Esteban, do you have any comments you want to make on it?
No, I'm excited to work with you. I think we've gotten to know each other very well in the last year or so. I think it's been a great relationship that's just keeps on getting better and better. And I'm happy to be there for a couple of days and try to get 15 people to learn as much as possible and take away from the stuff that we usually teach. I know that we're both Magma ambassadors. We both do a lot of the same things, but I think the good thing is that we also do things a lot differently. So I think it'll be very beneficial for attendees to go in there and take away from our approach to weddings. So it'll be really cool. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And without revealing too many details, it is going to be wedding focused. But even, if you are just a portrait photographer and you don't do weddings, I think there's a lot to be learned and a lot to gain. So in the next couple months or so, we'll be releasing more information as far as pricing and all that and how to reserve your spot. But yeah, Esteban, I am super excited to do this with you. Like I said earlier, you're a huge inspiration to myself and to, excuse me, and to many other photographers in the industry. So really stoked to be partnering up with you. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. And is there anything else you wanted to plug about your business or about Steel and Flint before we sign off?
No, I think if you're part of this group and you want to join another group, it's Steel and Flint Society, wedding photography education. There's a ton of stuff that we have in there. We have challenges. We also do some lives, and there's a great community in there, just as good as what you have going on here. And obviously, congratulations on huge success in a very short amount of time, which is always nice to see, especially with people that truly care about the industry and care about making sure that the industry grows in the right way, as opposed to being giving away that mentality that this isn't a community when in reality it really is, as long as you look in the right places. So thank you for putting this community together, because I think it's been great to see it grow in the last couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for helping this community grow. Your posts and your feedback on other posts really makes a huge difference. So I'm excited to see where this group goes in the next few months. Excited to do this workshop with you, and I am excited again that you were able to join us tonight, Esteban. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you to ProPrints for donating those 3 canvas prints as well. And we will see you same time, same place next month for our next image review. Take it easy, guys, and have a great night.
Bye, everyone.